got my mind. I got my mind. I got my mind. I got my mind. Stay on.
Hey, what's going on? We are here with this month's walking miracle, Derrick Johnson. I am super honored to have him on the show. And guess what? We got an even more special treat. We out here at Kelly Miller Elementary School where it all started. We decided to do the video right here in his hometown of Winsboro, South Carolina. You might not have heard of it before. You know, it's a real small town. You know, the elementary school. Now I'm just playing. But definitely, this is where it all started. It's where it all began. And I'm so honored to have Derrick on the show this time around to be our walking miracle for August. He's such a great guy. He's my brother in business, most definitely. Actually, we're out here working. We pulled over to do this video. So we in my moving office, out here in the moving office. We out here getting it. And so I'm definitely honored. He always, you know, has a smile, always some encouraging words. He's a comedian. I don't know if y'all get to see the comedian today, but he's definitely a comedian. Every time he tells a story, he brings it to life. So he's so vibrant and full of life, and I definitely appreciate his stories and those things about him. And so what I just wanted to do is, Derrick has been through so much. He is the epitome of perseverance. A lot of times when things happen in life, no matter what the cause may be, we might just give up. We might just be like, well, you know what, maybe it just ain't meant for me to have this. Maybe it's just not meant for me to do this. But not Derrick. Derrick keep going back every single time, and that is why he is so successful today. He's a successful businessman. And so Derrick, we are out here at Kelly Miller Elementary School where it all began. So what I want you to do is I want you to tell our audience how you became the successful businessman that you are today.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yes.
Well, I always knew that working a 9 to 5 wasn't for me. Every job that I ever had, and I had about 45 plus 5 jobs. I was good at every last one of them. All the employees liked me, the top management, they liked me, but I didn't like the work, and I knew that every time I got a job, every time I got a new position, I was always like, can I do this for 30 years straight or 20 years straight? Like,
that's what they expect with retirement.
Exactly.
For you to work 30 to 40 years. Can I do this for 30 to 40 years and be happy doing it? That's the question.
And get this, every time I went, it was always somebody that's at the job that's been there for that long, 25, 30 years or whatever.
Did you like what you seen, the person they had become?
Every time I asked them, I say, well, sir, how long you been here, sir? I've been here 30 years. I make so-and-so, I make $18. I'm like, so you been here for 30 years? And in my mind, I'm like,
that's
wow.
Tough. $18 after 30 years?
After 30 years?
Ooh.
Ain't no way. And in my mind, I'm like, no, that can't be me. And it's 2018 now, and I really started paying a close attention to what God was saying to me about 3 years ago. And I was at this job called Element Electronics. That's in Winsboro. They had a big layoff in 2016 in the month of February.
Wow.
And I was in it, of course. Now, remember I said I had about 40 jobs. I was serious. But this was the job that I had for over a year. The only job that I had over a year. Even until now. That's the only job that I had work-wise, paying per hour. That's the only one I had over a year. And after being there over a year and being comfortable, they laid us off.
Wow, what was that experience like? Them actually laying you off? Did you know in advance? Did you have an idea that it was gonna happen, or it was just like boom, all of a sudden?
I didn't have any idea whatsoever. I mean, it was a regular day, normal work day. Matter of fact, we had just came back onto the line from break, and then right after that, it was like about 15 or 20 minutes later, they was like, we got a meeting, a mandatory meeting in the lunchroom. So everybody like, cool, we ain't got to work. You know what I'm saying? Anytime you on the clock.
Hey, we ain't got to work then, y'all. Come on, let's go to the cafeteria. Listen what these people got to say.
That's how the people feel when the people that's on the clock.
Right.
Any kind of break, they happy. I was. Everybody is.
Right.
So when that happened, they sat everybody down on the chairs. And I actually have this recorded on my phone right now.
You got it recorded on your phone?
I still got it to this day.
Right.
The guy, he sat everybody down and said, well, we're sorry, but we got to downsize. And he went through all of that, blah, blah, blah. But the good thing about it was they laid us off, but they gave us a service packet. I think it was about $2,500 if I'm mistaken. So they gave us like a $2,500. Then they started not overtime, but what is it? When you I don't know why my mind is going.
Overtime. Unemployment.
Unemployment, that's it. They started eating me automatic unemployment after a week. So I'm a full-time student in school. I was going to ITT Technical Institute.
Right.
And of course, you know that they was open for over 50 years, doing business with students for over 50 years.
So you was kind of excited. You was like, oh, I ain't got to work no more, and I'm still getting the check,
and
I got a service pack.
And I got a service pack. I'm like, you know what? I was frustrated at first. I'm like, man, they firing me. But I'm like, you know what? It's all good because they give me money, and they put me on. I continue to get the money for another 5 months straight, and I can just focus more on school. Even though I was already doing good in school, 5 months without having to go to work and school at the same time, I could be way better than what I was. And which I did get. I became more crafty, and I was actually going to school for electrical engineering. I had a 4.0 degree, and I had a promising job with Blue Cross and Blue Shield in the IT department. They was going to start me off with $55 an hour.
Right.
All I had to do was graduate and get my degree.
Absolutely.
So, the job laid me off. I stayed at school for 5 months straight while I was drawing unemployment. So, when I got my last unemployment check, get this is the crazy part about it. The job laid us off on a normal day, regular day, on a Tuesday afternoon. I draw my unemployment for 5 months after that. And then I was on my way to school, regular day, on a Tuesday.
Same day the layoff happened.
Same day. The doors was locked to the school. Now, this was on the news. This was countrywide. This was all over the world. Because a national school, you know, ITT Tech, been in business over 50 years, serving students, serving the community, all of a sudden they just shut down after 50 years of being in operation. So I'm like, so now I'm looking at God like, you know,
Lord, what you want me to know now, Jesus?
I'm like,
come on.
Okay, I done took the word serious. I'm praying. I'm reading. I'm going to church. I'm being nice to people I don't like. And I lose my job.
I don't like y'all, but I'm being nice to y'all.
I lose the only job that I ever kept over a year. I was going to school and working at the same time. Then they laid me off after the people promised me a job, $55 an hour. I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what are you saying? So I went from full-time work, full-time school to nothing. In 1 year.
Wow.
And I was going to school and I was 2 months away from graduation, may I add. And I was about to have my degree. And they shut the schools down. So now I was at a crossroads. Like, I was really at a crossroads because when I first graduated high school in 2008, I went straight to school. I went to Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. But I did good in there. I went 3 years, but I stopped going after the third year for a foolish reason. And I always said I would never go back to Benedict College for whatever reason. I just said, man, I'd never go back.
God had other plans.
God had other plans for me.
Which is okay. So now I'm kind of starting to hear things a little different. So it's a few key things that I definitely want you to elaborate on, or I want to kind of get your stance on, because you said you had about 45 jobs, right?
Right.
And when you look at that from the natural standpoint, when you think of somebody who don't have multiple different jobs, you like, oh, dude, you can't ever keep a job. Like, you stay quitting jobs, you stay moving from job to job. But when you really think about it, sometimes I don't think that we recognize that sometimes that's wrapped up in our destiny. That's wrapped up in our calling. Because look at you today, you own your own successful business, and you quitting those jobs really wasn't a result of you not being a good worker or you not being able to put the work in. It was a result of, hey, I'm not meant to be here. Like, I'm supposed to be somewhere else. And at the time, I'm pretty sure you weren't thinking about that. But at that time, you like, dang, I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I can't do this. He making $18 an hour. He been here 30 years. Something didn't click. Now, some people would have said, well, that's $18, you know. He been here 30 years.
That's good money.
Hopefully, I can do better. I guess I could try it out. But for you, it's like, no, sir. And that was just a part of your entrepreneurial spirit. Whereas, you know, I don't want to work for $18 for the rest of my life. I can't do nothing with that. I can't help nobody. I could barely help myself with that. When you really think about it, having a family, really just for yourself, car payment, car insurance, a house payment if you want to buy a house, you know, vacations if you want to do something nice. You working hard every day. You want to do something nice for yourself. You can't do that off $18 an hour. I was making like $27, $28 an hour teaching, and you know what y'all say about teachers, we don't make no money, but I was actually making $27, $28 an hour, and you still can't, you know, it's still very, very, you know, kind of that friction Mr. Hawkins talking about, like,
tough.
I ain't got no money.
Check the check.
Yeah, just like this. Things just not shaking. So just how was it when you were quitting all of those jobs? What were people saying to you at that time? What were they saying?
Oh, my God. Man, I had one of my friends, his name is Leon. Everybody in the neighborhood call him Baldhead.
Shout out to Leon, just in case you see this video, Leon.
He used to always tell me, DJ, why you quit this job? That's a good job. I'm like, it's not for me, man. You know, it's not for me. Because making anywhere from like $400 to $600 a week, you can only take care of yourself and your family. And then when you look at that through God's eyes, that's selfish. Because it's still yourself. Right. If you're not taking care of yourself, it's your family or your wife or your kids. So it's still yourself, and that's selfish. God don't want you to. God don't have us on the earth to just wake up, go to work, pay the bills, take care of our family. No, He wants us to take care of everybody who's in need of help. And I've always been a giver, man. Like I want to do big things. Like I want to buy a family a house that's been struggling to pay their bills, or a family that lives in a rundown house. I want to surprise them and knock that house down and get one built. I want to walk into the grocery store and say, hey, man, everything on me.
Right.
Those are the type of things that I want to do in my life. And I can do nowhere near nothing like that working at a warehouse or a factory.
Absolutely.
Or at a restaurant. And there's no slight at nobody that actually does those things, but I'm talking about me, you know what I'm saying, in my life. That wasn't for me.
Absolutely. And so you talked about this, and you're definitely right. We are put on the earth to do God's work, to build His kingdom, and you can't do that. If you can't even take care of yourself, you really can't help nobody else, because you still taking care of you. And I think that that's so big. That's something that we really don't think about when we're planning out our lives. We plan our lives for just us, which is why so many of us struggle, because we're not thinking about our brothers and sisters. We're not thinking about giving the clothes off our back. We're thinking about just having enough for us, and that's not the way that it was ever really meant to be. And that's admirable about you, the fact that you were thinking like, with $18, I can't help nobody else. I can barely help myself. And so it's one of the things that, I share in, myself wanting to make sure that I have enough to take care of everything that I need to take care of and still be able to help somebody else, whether it's my family, whether it's somebody who's just in need, somebody who I see trying, but they just need a hand up. Because there's so many wonderful people, and a lot of times when we see somebody struggling, we like, oh, they ain't nothing, they ain't make good decisions. But sometimes it's not that they didn't make good decisions, they just haven't had somebody to teach them. They just haven't had somebody to be there and say, hey, look, this is what you need to do. Here's a pick me up, or whatever the case is, like some of us have had. Because some of us, we have good families, we have strong support systems. Everybody doesn't have that. And so it's just one of those things that we talk about all the time, leaving an inheritance to your children's children. So not just having enough money for you to live while you're here, but leaving, actually leaving something behind instead of some debt. Like we always say, you're going to leave one or two things behind. You're going to leave some debt, or you're going to leave a check. Which one you leaving? And I want to leave a check, not just a check. I want to leave a big check to my family. And so I definitely admire that about you. And so when your job was closing down, when you were going through all of these things, how did you feel? Like, how did you deal with all of that? Because, when you really think about it, we all experience loss. People lose jobs, they lose houses, they lose cars, all of those things. And you kind of lost some of those things right around the same time. What was that like? How did you deal with that?
It was rough at first, but I had a lot of like-minded people around me, but they wasn't like physically around me, but I could call them. That was like a call away, because most of the people that was around me didn't really think like I thought. Maybe one or two, with the exception of those two. Other than that, most people was, they just happy with what they was doing.
Absolutely.
And just something else that stagnated me a little bit was seeing like my grandfather and then my father and everything that they did when they grew up. Like the only thing they knew was graduate high school, get a job. That's my grandfather. Then my dad, right behind him, graduate high school, get a job. So in my eyes, the best thing that I could do was just graduate high school and get a job.
That's what most of us are taught.
But I went to college. I did do that for 3 years.
Absolutely.
And I learned a lot. And when I was in college, it opened my eyes to other stuff that my dad and my granddad didn't get an opportunity to hear about and learn about. And it was only after those 3 years, that's when I made my mind up, like, I cannot have a regular job. But yeah, I stopped going to school for a foolish reason after the 3rd year. And within those 5 years I was out of school, I was working the job that I didn't want to work. I found myself doing all of those things. And even now, I actually went back to school. So I graduate this year, 2018, in December.
Woo, woo.
And I'll have my Bachelor's of Science in Economics with a concentration in Finance.
All right.
Even though that may sound all way up there and all that, I don't even think I'm really going to use that. And remember when I said that I didn't want to go back to Benedict College. But I think that God wanted me to go back and finish what I started. Now, I don't think He wanted me to go finish just to get a degree.
Right.
Because, and I'm going to explain why. I'm going to explain why. I went back to school last year, 2017, at the beginning of the year in January. Mm-hmm. I went to school. Of course, I was older than most of the kids still coming in, so I wasn't talking to nobody in class. I had an opportunity to see.
You was more focused.
Yes.
Boom.
I had an opportunity to see what I was doing when I first came.
Right.
So I was like, wow, that was me. And so I'm in there like, wow, they just don't understand. They better take this thing serious, because I know what real life feels like after this. And because of that, it made me take studying and talking to my professors, it made me take that stuff more serious. Because when I first went to college, fresh out of high school, I wasn't one of the college students that was going to the
I feel like I'm catching most
professor
of the sun.
office. You know, I wasn't going to those professor offices all the time and trying to get them to know me and stuff like that. I didn't care about none of that. But when I went back, I realized the importance of it's not what you know sometimes, but it's who you know. So I went and made myself available to all the professors. And now because of that, now at the point, they all know me. At the School of Business, all the professors know me. They know what I do. And I really don't think that God sent me back to the school to get my degree. I think that God sent me back to that school because to get in this business and get this business started, which is now I own and operate my own insurance agency from New Jersey to Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm just trying to build out my company. And right now, the reason how I got into that position was by going to school and doing good in each one of my classes, and just so happened to do good at one of my professors. His name was Dr. O. Dr. O was like, man, you know what? You're one of my star students, man. I'm going to introduce you to one of my colleagues that graduated with me. His colleague happened to be Dion Freeman, my manager. Shout out to Dion from New Jersey. And so he introduced me to Dion, and Dion introduced me to the business. And when Dion introduced me to the business, he first put me on the webinar that we do. I was just totally taken away. And so I started going to the business. I started going to meetings every Monday, going to meetings every first Friday. Even when I wasn't even licensed yet, I was still going and meeting people.
And just seeing what was possible. That's big. So the fact that, God works in mysterious ways. A lot of times we don't think that we are out here, we think we just doing certain things, that we just meeting people by happenstance. When really God is setting up your life in a strategic way. And if you learn the lessons that you need to learn, you do the things that you need to learn, you never know what's possible. And so just from having to go through all of that got you to this one moment where you were able to meet this one guy that has introduced you to something that you feel like it has changed and will continue to change your life for generations to come. And that's really, really big because it shows how amazing God is and how his ways are not our ways. We could never understand. We meet people and we think, one of the things I used to always tell my students, because anybody who watch my shows know that my background is in teaching. One of the things I used to tell my students is, you never know who you're sitting beside. You never know who these people are. Right. So don't mistreat them. Make sure you speak to them. Now, of course, I used to make them feel crazy. I used to tell them the story like, what if your car broke down? It's a serial killer in the woods, and the one person you wouldn't speak to in class ride past you. And since you wouldn't speak to them, they don't stop, and boom, that's it. And so I used to tell them this real dramatic story, but seriously, though, you just don't know who you're sitting beside. You don't know who you're talking to, and you don't know who they know. And I always used to tell them, like, I'm a teacher today. But I want y'all to know I got big dreams, big goals, and I plan on achieving every single one of them. So you better watch how you handle me, because in the future, you're going to need me. You're going to want me to invest in your businesses. You're going to want to work for me. You're going to do all type of stuff. And I'm going to remember when you were a little jerk in class, and I'll be like, I don't know about all that. Now you're going to have to work extra hard to earn my good graces. And so that's really big. And so one of the things is that we just want to encourage everybody. Just listen to his story. He just told a brief synopsis of what happened, how he dealt with things, some of the things that happened, him losing his job, the school shutting down. So this is your third time having to go back to school, correct? Because you went your first, your second. Right. And so it took him 3 times to get it done. And that's why I said he is the epitome of perseverance, because a lot of times people don't do that. Now, they might go back 3 times, but they still never finish. He's about to finish in December with his degree. Not only is he finishing with his degree, but he's made lifelong connections, started an insurance agency where he's operating all the way from New Jersey to Georgia, all of these different things off of just persevering and really just going through those motions, dealing with himself and getting back to what he knew that God has for him. And so I thank you, Derrick. But before we go, I want you to just one word of encouragement, just something that could help somebody. You have an entrepreneurial spirit, yeah, you had to quit 45 jobs, and I'm pretty sure at that time people looked at you like you was crazy, but look at you now. And so if you had to tell somebody out there that's just like you, a younger Derrick, what would you say to those people?
Well, one thing I would say is listen to that inner voice, you know what I'm saying, that's inside of you. Listen to what God is saying and telling you to do, and do it early. Do it early on. Like, do it ahead of time.
Absolutely.
It'll save you a lot of drama, a lot of headache. Oh man, I can't tell you enough of what being hard-headed gets you, and where it gets you, and how long it sets you back, or how far it sets you back.
Right.
But I would just say one of my strongest whys is what God spoke something to me, and he said when you get yourself together, you are the glue that's gonna connect your family and your friends. He said that he told me that you are the person that's gonna be able to bring people in and be able to give people jobs and create employment for people, employment opportunities and stuff like that. And when he was telling me that, I'm like, who, me? You know, I'm like, who, me? I work for somebody right now.
Right.
So this was about 3 or 4 years when he was telling me this, and now I actually see the fruit from what he was telling me to do. I just wasn't, you know, I guess I didn't believe back then as much as I do now.
Right.
And now I take it more seriously now, and I just trust God. So the word that I would tell somebody else that's in my position now, I would say just trust God. If you long as you hearing something that's positive, something that's not going to hurt you or whatever, just trust it. Just do it. Just do it.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with you, Derrick. And so I thank you for being on our show and being our walking miracle for August. And so you heard it from his mouth, just making sure that you go out there and do it, because you are the glue. And not just the glue to your family, but the glue to other people's family. You may be the one that they're looking at, because remember, there's always somebody watching you. And so if you go out there and do what God has for you, then there are so many people connected to you that are also going to be able to fall into position simply because you did what you're supposed to do. Because when we don't do what we're supposed to do, we derail everything. We cause everything to kind of go awry. And then God, he already know what you're going to do. He already has, you know, all of the answers. But then he has to create a whole new solution because you just wouldn't listen. You make things harder for yourself. You make things harder for your kids, for generations to come, when you don't try to figure out what your destiny, what your purpose is, and then fulfill it with your whole heart. And so we thank you for joining us. I want to continue to encourage all of you to be the walking miracles that you are. Continue to walk this thing out. Y'all got this. It doesn't matter what you're going through today. It doesn't matter what you go through tomorrow. We all go through things. We all in this thing called life together. So keep pushing, keep persevering. Y'all got this. Y'all have a good month.